Let's welcome in Todd Zolecki, who covers the Phillies for MLB.com. So let's start there. Todd, give me an update here on Andrew McCutchen. What is his season outlook?
Well, it seems to be pretty good. I talked with a couple people yesterday about McCutchen because he was such a big part of this team's success the first 2 months of the season last year before he tore his ACL. I was told that his rehab went great. He completed his rehab. He actually went home before things got closed down in Clearwater last week. And so if he does return, if he is healthy, and like I said, if he does hit like he hit the first 2 months of last season, it is such a big difference for the Phillies at the top of the lineup. You have somebody that can get on base. You have somebody that can hit some home runs. You have somebody that can run a little bit. And again, Andrew McCutchen, former MVP, to have him in this lineup would be big.
All right, so we talked about it earlier with John Smoltz and Dan and Carlos, and a shortened season. It's going to be a sprint in the NL East. Very high expectations for the Phillies. Joe Girardi, the new manager in Philadelphia. What are your thoughts, and what are you hearing about how Philadelphia is approaching this season?
So it's interesting. Before all this happened, you would have looked at the Phillies and said maybe they're the third or fourth best team in the National League East, maybe on the outside looking in terms of a postseason berth. But a 60-game season actually might help the Phillies. Look back to their first 60 games the last 2 years. If the season ended after 60 games last year, they would have won the NL East. 2 years ago, they were a half game out of the second wild card. So a team like this that maybe has some holes, maybe some injury questions, maybe some other issues, you can get it going for 60 games. 162 games may be something different. So I actually think this could benefit the Phillies, even though the big caveat here, though, Fran, is they play only the American League East and the National League East. So their schedule is a lot tougher than a lot of these other teams in the National League.
That's a great point. And we just talked off camera a little bit, and the COVID bug hit some of the Phillies down in Clearwater, down at the spring training facility. What are the concerns of the organization moving forward? I know everything is coming up, though, to Philadelphia.
Yeah, so it is really interesting. 6 players in Clearwater tested positive. 1 player tested positive outside of Clearwater. And here's the concerning part for the Phillies. They believe that they did everything appropriately. In fact, they believe that they went above and beyond in terms of trying to keep the players safe. Everything they did in Clearwater at the spring training facility, they think was perfect. But what happens when they leave the ballpark? If a player leaves the ballpark and he goes inside a restaurant, or he goes to a crowded beach, or he's around a lot of people, maybe not wearing a mask, you increase your chance of infection. So that's going to be interesting. When camp opens up here in Philly next week, how are they going to be able to keep all these players in line? Is there going to be a lot of peer pressure from some players, like some of the team leaders? Are they going to really have to stay on some players? Like, hey, you don't need to go out to this restaurant. Get carry out. You don't need to go out. Stay in your hotel room. I think those things are going to be really, really key, not just for the Phillies, but for every team.
Are there any roster battles in particular that you're keeping your eye on?
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting now is because there's not going to be spring training games, is how are they going to figure out who the 5th starter is going to be? With the time that camp got canceled, it was Vince Velasquez, Nick Pivetta, and Ranger Suarez. The losers of that battle were probably going to go to the bullpen. So how do the Phillies make that decision? Do they just go based on pure stuff? How the guys may be throwing in some inter-squad games? But that battle to me is key, especially because early on, your pitchers aren't going to be going 6, 7, 8 innings. You need these guys to pitch well. So who is going to get that final spot? I think it's either going to be Velasquez or Pivetta if I had to put my money on it.